All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's Tournament Strategy Show. I'm Josiah, aka Bob226, and we're going to go through this slate. We'll go game by game, talk through some of the injury news, talk through guys I like, potential leverage plays, some guys I don't like as much, and just game plan it. And then, of course, pre-lock show will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And then for that one, you'll have myself, maybe B-Dubs, aka Brandon, will be able to join it. And then on that one, we'll focus on the execution side of things. I'll show my mins, maxes, what I'm doing in the domination station to get some winning lineups, ideally. Mo, what's up? Yeah, I like AD a lot today. Part of why he's the thumbnail. Sometimes the thumbnail is just the thumbnail. Other times, it's a guy I like a lot. And today, it's the latter. Let's go ahead and jump into these games, though. A nice 6-gamer. We have a decent amount of news to keep these games interesting. But yeah, solid slate so far. So for the Memphis Grizzlies, we've been playing these guys a lot. Finally, they're priced appropriately, so they're not must plays or anything today. Jaren Jackson Jr. is doubtful, so he'll be out more than likely once again. Zaire Williams is out. Derrick Rose is out. Man, yeah, these guys are still missing quite a few guys. But like I said, everyone's slightly more expensive, so these guys aren't must plays. I'm not overly excited about the Nets today. No one stood out for me as someone that I have to force into every lineup. This game has the lowest game total on the slate. Memphis hasn't been great at scoring. Nets aren't really anyone I'm afraid of, but I'm not overly excited about this team and or this game. I do have a little bit of GG Jackson, Gregory Jackson showing up in a few of my lines. Who else showed up? Aldama showed up a little bit. But again, these aren't guys I'm planning on forcing into my lines today. Maybe like a last piece if I have to, but not trying to go crazy here. And then for the Nets, Ben Simmons, I believe we got the notification that he's already out, but on Underdog, it looks like that might not have. Okay, there we go. Yeah, he's out. Cam Thomas is out. Once again, not a situation that's looking overly enticing. Nets against the Grizzlies, nice matchup. I think you can look at Bridges, you can look at Claxton if you're really trying to play the Nets tonight, but ultimately this isn't a spot I was trying to get too cute on. Looks like Cam Johnson's projecting decently well. DFS is okay, but again, I don't like this game very much today. What's up, OG? Hello, everybody. Thanks to B-Dubs' leverage call, I placed 13th in the 20 max last night, played 2 lines, won $508. That is freaking awesome. There you go, OG. Love that you crushed on a Sunday, too. A lot of you, or some of you might know, I don't really play DFS on Sunday or Saturday, but glad it went well for you. OG said the sim model helped, even though I don't know what I'm looking at. The sim model is great. It's my favorite tool. I like to think that I'm the one who brought it to fame, but of course the one and only guy Wags was the creator of it. Sim model is one of the tools that helped me, looking at this 8x column, find some of those low owned, high upside guys. So that's where a lot of our leverage plays come from these days. And SGA today, love it, man. All right, Jamie said, quick question, has nothing to do with tonight's slate, but why are people crying about how they should void Curry bets last night just because he played like shit and sat the second half of others? Man, people always bitch and complain when things don't go our way. It's gambling. Sometimes it goes great and we make a shit ton of money. Other times players don't come through, just like real life, you know? But yeah, that's really what it is, man. People are bitching and they always will. And they will probably not play Curry again in DFS, which makes life easy for us. And sports betting, you know, that's just people getting a little overly sensitive. Agreed, Mo. Sim model's the best tool, man. JM thought he is playing 20 minutes plus. Is that blowout run or is he? We'll look at it. We'll look at it, JM. Let me do one quick thing. All right. So back on track. We're at Portland. Hagen, we'll look at, like JM mentioned, he has been playing 20 plus minutes. It looks like those have been pretty consistent minutes at this point. not a great matchup. He's not a very high usage player, not a great points per minute player either. So I'm not really trying to go there today, JM, to be honest with you, but it is worth noting he is seeing more consistent minutes at this point. Also, they're missing guards. So it's also just injury run. So it's not really blowout. It's just that they're still missing Scoot, Brogdon, Sharp. So he's really the next man up outside of Chris Murray. But again, he's not really a great player, and the matchup isn't great, so he's not really DFS viable for me, at least at this point. The big news here is that DeAndre Ayton is listed as questionable. Ideally, he'll play here, just so we don't have to worry about any of the backup centers here. But, of course, if he gets out, it does solidify things for Jabari Walker. Reith, of course, would become a bit more viable as well. I don't love the matchup against the Timberwolves for any of the Trailblazers. We saw Simons have a decent game a couple nights ago. I don't expect that against the Timberwolves, but if he stays super low owned, I might consider taking a shot. But the issue here is that he is the only guy that's any good on this team at this point. And although his usage rate is increasing, we've seen his field goal accuracy go down with as the injuries continue to pile up because teams are able to focus on him so much. Or at least that's what I tell myself, just because I like Simons and he hasn't been as good lately. But matchup against the Timberwolves, I don't love. I don't like the spot for very many of these guys. Ayton is priced well at 6,900, but the matchup is still tough. And so if he shows up a little bit, that's fine, but I don't really want to get over field weight because I expect him to get his ass whooped tonight. If he plays. And then for the Timberwolves, this is a matchup we've seen quite a few times at this point. Timberwolves are healthy. They typically blow out the Raptors, but their role players, and particularly Anthony Edwards, has been really good in this matchup because it's such a soft matchup. Edwards is really chalky on FanDuel, but not very chalky on DraftKings. And so I'm trying to understand really why that's happening. It might be a position thing. I haven't looked overly close at it yet, but I like Anthony Edwards tonight. The blowout concern does worry me, but I want to at least be around field weight exposure. He might end up being a leverage play. He's someone that I'm looking at as someone who has that kind of ability, but haven't landed on that yet. And then Rudy's viable too at 7,500, but the only guy I'm overly excited about is Anthony Edwards here. All right, moving on. We finally have games that are actually good game environments. We have the Clippers going up against the Bucks. So this game's a little tough because the Clippers are healthy and Giannis is questionable. Those are two pretty important things. Russell Westbrook's out. That's worth mentioning, but it doesn't really change too much for me. The concern here is that the Bucks have improved a decent amount defensively over the last few weeks with new coaching, things of that sort. So I'm not overly excited about Kawhi here. Don't really like Paul George or even Zubac too much. I do still want to take a shot here just because no one's playing the Clippers. So James Harden, I still think the Bucks, although they've improved defensively really against every position, they're probably still the worst defending against guards. And so I'm interested in taking a shot on a super low-owned James Harden. Outside of that, you can, of course, look at Kawhi as a pivot off of that or PG, but I'm just going to take a shot on James Harden. Not going too crazy here. Probably going to be around 5-10%, maybe 15% if I start to get more excited about it. But for now, I think just taking a shot on one of these guys is a solid way of going and just getting different on this slate a little bit. Yeah, guards against Milwaukee. They've improved, but still, guards against the Bucks. For the Bucks tonight, only thing that matters here is Giannis and the fact that he's questionable. If Giannis is out, that really opens things up for us, especially playing some of these mid-range options on this team. We have Damian Lillard, who would become a core play if Giannis gets ruled out. Brook Lopez would become much more viable. Bobby Portis would be someone that's probably close to a core play. And then Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder, they would see nice boosts as well, even Patty C. But for now, I'm playing Giannis. If he plays, if he doesn't play, which we should get that news ideally by lock, then we're playing the rest of the Bucks. So either way, I'm playing at least one Buck, but I like the scenario where Giannis sits and we have a few more options to play around with. That's what I'm hoping for, but more of a wait and see approach. We'll handle it when we get that news. For the Wizards tonight, this is the game, the Super Bowl, not quite the Super Bowl, but a really big game for two bad teams. The Wizards are on a really bad losing streak. I don't know if y'all have been keeping up with it, but we might be due for a fantastic game that I'm kind of pumped for in a couple weeks, where if the Wizards keep losing, they'll face the Pistons, and then we'll have the real Super Bowl of who's going to break the record this season or really break the record of all time for who will have the most losses in one season. I think the Wizards will probably pick up a win before that game against the Pistons in a couple weeks, but I would love to see them lose that game, or I would love to see that happen, just so I think it would just be so much fun. But anyway, for DFS, the Wizards are pretty healthy at this point. The reason why we're playing them is because they're in the highest total game, and both the Jazz and the Wizards suck. And they have a pretty nice 5.5 spread, highest total on the slate. Two bad defenses, I will reiterate. They are really bad. So, everyone from this game is going to be chalky. And does that give me a little bit of nervousness because we can't typically trust these teams too much? Yeah. But y'all know me. I stick to my process every slate. I don't really do too much. I build around the highest total game and have leverage plays, force some exposures to some of the other games that I think have interesting spots. So because of that, I'm following the crowd here. I'll have a lot of Kyle Kuzma tonight. He's a great play. Only reason I can think of to not play him is just because he's super chalk on it. But he's still 7,400, so it's not even that risky in my mind. Denny Avdia, playing him tonight as well. Gonna force him in if I have to, but he's showing up a good bit for me naturally. Tyus Jones, another great spot, great matchup for him as well. Marvin Bagley, another guy who's lower owned. I know Bagley hasn't had or shown the most upside here lately, but in this matchup, playing consistent minutes, I'm willing to take a shot on him as well. And then Jordan Poole, who no one's ever excited to play. I don't have to force him in, but he's showing up initially by himself at 6K in a good matchup. We know he can still get hot, so I'm okay with him showing up as well. I'm not getting to Kispert and Bilal as much as of right now, but again, highest total game, if they show up a little bit around like 5-10% exposure, I'm okay with that, but I don't really want much more than that. So yeah, I like the Wizards because I kind of have to. What's up, Thomas? Hope you're doing all right. Is Kispert still going to see the same amount of minutes with Bilal back? No, I mean, I think that's really going to be a coaching decision that we'll have to just wait and see how they decide to play out. Kispert's been in good form, but with Bilal coming back, like I expect them to really. I think our projection has their minutes pretty close to each other. It has Bilal at 31. That might be a little bit too generous, but I expect them to be relatively close, probably between 20 to 28 minutes. I could see for either one of them. Pretty wide range, but always just comes down to coaching when it comes to minutes. Ultimately, I'm okay with both of them, but I don't think either of these guys should be like your first choice or guys that you're trying to force exposure to. They're just guys you can kind of land on, or if you have one spot left with 48 or 4,500, they're okay plays, but they're nothing special. But they're in a good game environment, and that's why when I'm looking at those kind of value pieces, I prioritize value pieces in good game environments and or widespread environments, like that Portland, Minnesota game. For the Jazz tonight, Jazz have injuries, and so on top of it being a good game environment, great matchup, we have injury news, which are basically forcing all of the Jazz into our lines tonight. Clarkson is playing tonight, so that's nice, or at least he wasn't on the injury report, because I know he was going through that illness a little bit before, so he missed a game. Lauri Markkanen out. Kessler out. Two bigs who play a decent amount of minutes for them, which really opens things up for guys like John Collins. He should be much more involved today. And again, great matchup for him. So Collins is a core play for me as of right now, and I expect that to stay the case. Jordan Clarkson he does see an increase in usage, but he should continue to take on more of an aggressive role, be more involved from an offensive perspective with Markkanen and Kessler out. Clarkson does come on the bench, but he plays plenty of minutes, so that's not really ever a concern. Usage rates do get a little weird for him just because he doesn't start with the starters, but he does end a lot of games. So when they're close, they haven't had too many close games this season, but still. Clarkson's just one of those pieces that I want to have exposure tonight. As of right now, he's showing up a lot for me. THT, I get a bit more nervous about, but he's projecting well. He's really cheap. I do like Taylor Hendricks. I think our projection's solid on him. I might have to put a min on him to make sure he shows up. I don't want to forget about him tonight. Chris Dunn isn't a priority for me. But again, when it comes to like Sexton and George and Clarkson, they see a boost for me because of the usage rates, but it's really Collins that I'm prioritizing here. And then Bryce Sensabaugh, he's going to be more involved with Markkanen and Kessler out. He's going to be a core play for everybody, so that's not really much of a surprise. At 3,200, he makes sense. He's just one of those guys I'm just going to play. But there's not enough data, or I haven't seen him play enough where I'm overly excited about it one way or the other. We're expecting him to start tonight, so it just makes enough sense with the pieces and guys that they have out that I expect him to see more run. I think we're also expecting Yurtseven to also see a few more minutes here tonight, but assuming he doesn't start, he's not someone that I'm trying to prioritize. So if you want to see, you already see like Bryce kind of sliding in as a core play. You see plenty of Clarkson. THT is showing up a lot. I mentioned him. He's cheap. He should be a little bit more stable with Markkanen out. I don't plan on having THT as a core play unless I see something that really sways my viewpoint. But I just don't know how much he's going to actually play tonight. So I'll probably be closer to like 30, 40, 50%, maybe 60, but I would prefer just to not have THT as a core play. Just feels a little risky. Rooney, I play on DK, so it's always more for FanDuel for me. I mean, it's always more on DraftKings for me than FanDuel. For the Bulls tonight, per usual, Bulls are relatively healthy. Alex Caruso's questionable. It does matter a little bit, but I'm not really planning on playing Caruso tonight. He does make other plays more viable. We have a nice 227 total here, 6.5 point spread. I thought earlier this game might get forgotten about and we might get low ownership here, but that's just not the case. We see a lot of very chalky players here. Nikola Vucevic is the Bull I'm going to prioritize. I love the matchup against Sabonis. I like the game environment. I expect them to go back and forth tonight. So Vucevic's the priority. DeRozan and White are very chalky. Upside, they've shown glimpses here and there, but it hasn't been consistent. If I can get exposure to DeMar and Kobe, I'm fine with it, but as of right now, I just can't make them a priority for me on this slate. AO is showing up a lot by himself. That's fine. Andre Drummond, his minutes and production are all over the place. I don't love how chalky he is here. We're not expecting him to start again tonight. If Caruso gets ruled out, it wouldn't shock me if they switch up the starting lineup. But yeah, I don't love the ownership on Drummond. That's what worries me the most. I'm not going to prioritize him. If he shows up, he shows up. If he starts, I'm a bit more comfortable with that exposure, being closer to 23, 25% exposure. But if he doesn't, I'm not trying to force him in. It's really Vucevic here for me as the top priority. And there's no one else. Oh, yeah, and I mentioned AO showing up a good bit by himself. I do like AO tonight. And then for the Kings, we have a similar situation to the Bucks where it's hard to talk too much about these guys because De'Aaron Fox is already questionable. And so if Fox gets ruled out, that's a boost to Murray and Monk. We know that pretty well. Davion Mitchell at 3,600 wouldn't be a must play or anything like that, but he would become more viable as well. So since we don't really, and Keontae George is now questionable for the Jazz, that is huge. If George gets ruled out, I might have to play 5 Jazz in one line, 4 to 5 in one line, just because they're all so cheap. We can touch on it quickly. That would be a gigantic boost to Clarkson, gigantic boost to Sexton, just off the top of my head. But we'll talk more about that situation on the pre-lock show, which again, link in the description, promo code BOB if you're interested in that. But yeah, long story short, I'm playing Sabonis. Sabonis is someone that I'm going to force exposure to. If there was no AD on this slate, he would probably be a leverage play for me, but y'all know me and Sabonis. I've been playing him all year, going to continue to play him. Love the spot, love the matchup against the Bulls. If you're wondering who do I prefer between Vucevic and Sabonis, the price range is pretty different. It's pretty dramatic, but I also like Sabonis a bit more as well. Especially if Fox gets ruled out, it's even better for him. But good spot no matter what. And then we have the Thunder tonight. Thunder are going a little overlooked from an ownership standpoint. They are pricey, though, so we're not really getting a value on anyone here. No real injury news to talk about. SGA is someone that I'm going to play in my 150. I'm going to force him in at least around 7%. At 10,700, it's a little hard to make him a leverage play, but at that low ownership, he's definitely a viable leverage play. Someone that I'm considering but haven't landed on yet. I usually only like having 1, maybe 2 stud leverage plays, and I'll usually match the field on guys that I like their spot. And so he's right there on the line between leverage play and guy I'm just going to match the field on. So we'll see. I like the spot against the Lakers, though. And again, good game environment, closest spread on the slate. I'm going to be over the field. I can at least tell you that. And then Chet Holmgren going up against the Lakers, seeing decent ownership at 11%. 8K is not a bad price tag, but it's also not cheap enough where I'm excited to play him or force exposure to him. So not showing up too much for me right now. Similar story of Jalen Williams, and none of the other Thunder are showing up too much for me either. There's really SGA or bust. And then for the Lakers, LeBron James is questionable per usual. And then Anthony Davis is probable. Cam Reddish, probable. Christian Wood has been out. Vanderbilt's been out. No new news there. Anthony Davis, my favorite play on the slate, and he's looking at 15% ownership. I can almost guarantee, and I have to be careful with this because I never know exactly if the optimizer will allow me to do everything that I want to do on a slate, but my plan is to at least be double the field on Anthony Davis. I think we might get enough value if injury news goes the way that I want it to, and that Jazz Wizards game is pretty cheap just across the board. So matchup is great against the Thunder. Chet can do a lot of things, and he's not a bad defender by any means, but he's been giving up a lot of fantasy points to centers, and so I'm going to play bigs against him continually, and AD is the one today. Outside of AD, I don't have a ton of confidence in the rest of the Lakers tonight. LeBron is fine if he plays. If he gets ruled out, then that will open things up for more potential value, but, he a little bit more hit or miss. We'll handle that when we get there. So like I said, guys, interesting slate. Quite a few viable pivot options we can go down. There's not everyone's playing the Wizards and the Jazz tonight, and I'm on board with that. But there's quite a few low-owned guys, low-owned potential leverage plays that I like enough where I feel like might be able to get different and have some solid wins. So again, we'll have the true plan and execution on the pre-lock show, which will be at 5:30 p.m. But outside of that, we'll be good to go. Mo, I don't know if I have a favorite stud yet. I'll have one on the pre-lock show. But as of right now, I'm deciding between the top 4. Giannis if he plays, SGA, Sabonis, and AD. Leaning towards AD right now, but I'll have a concrete answer for that by the pre-lock show. Anyway, appreciate everyone joining. Appreciate the support, and if anyone was able to sign up to DFS Army. But I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out, guys. Good luck. Bye.